Oh, hey friends! Today we're going to be diving into a 5-step beginner-friendly furniture flipping tutorial with a focus on profit, not just our fantastic, beautiful results. Because the reality is, you can make a piece look amazing and still lose money. And in this economy, well, let's just say we can't have that. When you're starting out, what you buy actually matters more than how talented you are. So look for something that's solid wood, maybe has dovetail drawers, or at least some really good bones. Like this coffee table, for example, or this little dresser are great places to start. And anything that's got a name brand always has a quick return rate. All right, so you found your furniture piece and you're ready to move on to the first step, which is cleaning. Furniture just gets dirty. It just does. And so when you open the drawers and take a look at things, you're going to find fun little treasures like old Barbie Band-Aid stickers and really mostly just a lot of dust. But I did find a couple small presents in these nightstands. But more on that later. One of the best ways to acquire the most amount of profit is to use things that you already have. So people are going to tell you you need the new, latest, greatest product. And sometimes that really does help. But in the beginning, you're just trying to get the experience under your belt. So use a screwdriver that you already have. Removing the knobs or pulls, as well as the drawers, are going to help you get in there to do a good, solid cleaning. Because there's nothing worse than starting off on a piece with someone else's dirt. Now, sometimes this is easier said than done, like in the case with these nightstands. I do not know what superpower these bottom drawers had, but I need to know immediately because I will be using them for my furniture pieces in the future. They did not want to come out of their home. Don't you want to get nice and clean? Come on. After spending an embarrassingly long amount of time trying to get this first drawer out, I switched over to the other nightstand and had the problem with this drawer as well. I soon would find out the reason why these drawers weren't coming out. But for now, you can watch me struggle with this inanimate object. Come on. What sort of voodoo? And then all was revealed. Come on. Yo, what is that? Oh, please. Don't be anything scary. Okay. Nothing scary. $20.12 though. Oh, thank gosh. Okay. All right. Now this one. Doesn't have a name or anything. Nothing. So I have a deep-seated fear that I'm gonna one day find someone's like ashes or something super substantial and valuable, and I'll never be able to get it back to the rightful owner. So I'm so relieved that there wasn't anything of great importance in this find. Let me just break this to you now. Furniture flipping and furniture restoration is super, super dirty. So don't wear your finest clothes. You're gonna be dusty, you're gonna be grody. Just prepare yourself. You're also going to do multiple layers of cleaning. So the next level is a degreaser. You can absolutely go out and buy the latest, greatest degreasing spray, or since we're focusing on maximizing our profits, you can use something that's probably already under your kitchen sink. Dawn dish soap and warm water in just an old spray bottle will absolutely do the trick in cleaning up and degreasing the furniture piece that you're preparing. Just start from the top and work your way down. Step 2 is making necessary repairs, and sometimes this step isn't even needed. For these nightstands, unfortunately, it absolutely was. When I purchased these, I didn't realize that the center part inside the crumb catcher line wasn't solid wood. It is actually chipboard. And some of the chipboard had absorbed some moisture along the years, but that's okay. We can fix this. You simply remove any of the damaged chipboard and then fill it with Bondo. Bondo is a filler that repairs dents, holes, scratches, anything you really need to, well, fill. I like Bondo because it works really quickly. You will also see me use Quickwood epoxy, but for this particular project, because we're focusing on profit, time is money, and this product dries faster than Quickwood. It's also very cost effective. This entire tube was $5.97 USD, and I used probably about half of it because there was a substantial amount of dents and scratches on these nightstands. Now, I do need to give the appropriate warning that this is a very strong chemical and you need to wear a mask and do this in a well-ventilated area to protect your lungs. In 15 to 20 minutes, that Bondo is ready to be sanded flat so you get a nice smooth finish. Now, this is another area that you can potentially save money. It's completely an option to purchase a sander of sorts, whether it's a palm sander or a random orbital sander, or you can sand it by hand. And when you're just starting out and you're trying to get the experience, I would recommend just starting to sand things by hand. It'll also help you appreciate when at some point, if you do choose to continue on with your furniture flipping experience, when you buy the sander, how wonderful they are. But in the meantime, hand sanding is a perfectly good option. The way they measure sandpaper is by grit. And it's kind of different where the lower the grit, the thicker, rougher the finish is going to be. And the higher the grit, the smoother finish you're going to get. It usually comes in sheets, and it usually comes in like a pack. But to start out, I would recommend getting an 80 grit, a 120 grit, and a 220 grit. So the 80 grit is going to get old paint off, old stain. The 120 is going to start the smoothing process, and the 220 is going to get it nice and smooth, ready for paint or stain or whatever finish you choose. For these nightstands, I really did use a lot of the Bondo Spot Putty. All of that red is trying to fill in the gouges and the chipboard that I ended up needing to take up and fill to try to even it out and get it ready for the next family that's going to use these nightstands. And this is a good example of when that sander is going to come in handy. Now, you could absolutely hand sand this and get the same result, but it would have doubled your time. So a hand sander is a delightful luxury when you've invested enough time and experience, or you can also purchase them at garage sales. I've seen people sell them, or maybe a family member or a friend has one that you could use, but they definitely do help. But it's completely plausible to sand this by hand as well if you don't want to invest in a sander. Step 3 is the final prep for paint or stain. Now, hear me when I say this. This final prep will make or break your furniture flip or refinish. You can do all the cleaning and repairing you want, but if you don't do these finite, more meticulous steps before moving forward with painting or staining, it's going to show. And these are the things that buyers are going to be looking for. All right, so we have dusted with a microfiber cloth or rag or even an old t-shirt. You don't need to go out and buy any fancy tack cloth. All of those work just as well. And now we're going to move on to priming, but first we need to protect our drawers. There's a lot of fantastic product out there to help protect against paint splatters, but I've just been using this packing paper that comes in shipments for years, and it does the exact same thing and doesn't cut into our final profit. I have chosen to paint these nightstands, and I need to prime them before moving forward to paint. The most cost-effective way to prime is to get a primer in a can and use a chip brush just to paint it on. However, I also recently found this spray primer, which has been a game changer for time management. So it's your call. And one of the reasons I prime almost every time before I paint is it's got a funny way of showing any imperfections that are going to come through when you finally do actually apply the paint color that you would like. Case in point, remember that chipboard we removed? It was a little bit uneven on this corner, so I just go back in with some of this Bondo spot putty and fill in the gaps so it's nice and smooth, and then I'll recoat it again with primer just to seal it to make sure no future moisture gets in where I've removed the chipboard. For this project, I chose to use the Bondo glazing and spot putty because I felt like it was more beginner friendly. It just comes right out of the tube as opposed to the Bondo wood filler, which I would say is probably more of an intermediate level furniture flipper, furniture restoration tool. But the reason I chose not to use it is because it comes with this hardener, which can feel potentially intimidating, and I want this specific video to be as accessible for people who are just starting out as possible. So both are fantastic options. The wood filler, you would really kind of want to use, you'd want to use this for structural issues. This is going to be your go-to. But for this piece, because it didn't really have any structural issues, this wood putty worked great. I know it's easy to get excited that you're almost to the painting stage, but don't forget to sand down the primer that you just applied so it's nice and smooth and doesn't show up after you paint. Then you'll go ahead and give it a quick wipe with a rag or t-shirt or paper towel just to get up any of that extra dust that's floating around. And this is just my own little pro tip. Turn, if you're able, your furniture piece upside down and look for any scratches or dings that you may have missed. In this case, I found an old ding just up under the trim, underneath the top of the nightstand that I filled in real quick. It's just those little things that really do pay off in the end. Just like before, sand down that Bondo spot putty, and then we're ready to move on for paint. It's time! We're finally ready to paint or stain. This is the step that is often most intimidating for people, including myself, and I've been doing this for like 15 or 16 years at this point. It's the time where you're more able to physically see the results of all this hard work you've been putting in. So let's just do a couple beginner-friendly tips. Thin coats of paint or stain will always win over thick coats. I know it's fun to completely cover the wood if you're painting or to get some beautiful color on the wood if you're staining, and it feels good to have it just all done in one coat. But that really is going to hinder the outcome of your project. Thin coats can dry quicker and better and adhere better to the project. Thin coats are the way to go, despite how much fun it might be to just slather on a thick coat on there. Remember, you can always add on more paint or more stain, but to take it down, well, it sucks. So just take my word for this. Stick with your thin coats. Next is to look at the instructions that are on the product that you're using and respect that dry time, because it really will make a huge difference. Because if the first layer doesn't dry properly, the second layer will not adhere appropriately, and then it's going to really extend your dry time, which is a huge bummer, especially if you're flipping for profit, and that time management really does matter. Lastly, stain or paint in the same direction. What you'll see me do here is I've kind of thrown on the paint, but this final move is to get all of the brush strokes going the same direction, smooth, they lean into each other. This really will matter in the end to help prevent getting blotchy stain or chunky paintbrush marks. It really does make a difference. This may be a hot take, but I swear by wood conditioner if you're staining. It is a must to prevent blotchy wood stain. There's nothing more disappointing when you get completely done with a project and you look at it and realize that your stain is blotchy and you have to go and fix it. Just take the couple minutes to do the wood conditioner and you'll thank me in the end. Then, depending on your humidity, 5 to 20 minutes after you apply the conditioner, just wipe it off with a rag or a paper towel, and you are ready to move forward with your stain. Now, I break a rule here, and I want to call it out. So typically, you would want to stain with the grain. So if the grain of the wood is going vertical, you would want to stain vertical. But these bun feet were really awkward to stain, and I tried to unscrew them and couldn't get them off, so I'm having to kind of work around. So I am staining a little bit crossways and then a little vertical, just to try to get in those kind of nooks and crannies and not miss any place on the bun foot, and just get it completely stained and taken care of. Eventually I do wise up and just go grab a paintbrush to get the stain really in that little nook between the foot and the nightstand, but there's always room for opportunity, right? And that's just kind of life. So you live, you learn. Depending on the kind of stain you use, you usually let it sit up for 5 to 15 minutes, depending on what kind of stain penetration you're trying to get, and then you just wipe it off. Something that is not talked about enough is how to properly dispose of the rags or the paper towels that you use. These are combustible at this point. So there are a couple different options. One, you can put it in a sealable metal pot. In this case, I use an old cooking pot. Soak it with water and set it outside away from your home. Another option is to lay them out flat and let them dry again away from your home in case it does decide to randomly catch fire. You and your family are safe. Our paint has dried and we're just going to do a really light, soft sanding in between coats to get that really buttery smooth finish. One more paint coat and we are all done and ready to peel the tape. Buyers do care about and will ask about the sides of drawers and what condition they're in. So I got just a little bit of splatter of primer on the side of this drawer. So I'm just going to take a high grit sandpaper and just sand it right off and we're good to go. This is my favorite step. You're adding in that extra little bit of fluff that just makes the piece come together. If the furniture piece you're working on has drawers or sliders of any kind, I highly recommend waxing the drawers. And I just use Howard's Feed and Wax. I believe it was like 17 and some change US dollars. And that bottle that you just saw has lasted me 2 years. So it goes a really long way. It smells great and it just helps the drawers slide in and out really easily, which again is something that is very common. Usually probably the first question that buyers will ask is, what condition are the drawers in? And it's so nice to be able to say they slide in and out beautifully. They've just been waxed. This is a huge selling point, and you will absolutely get a return on your investment of this wax. I'll go ahead and put the links to the products that I used in this video in the description, and feel free to check those out. You can use whatever products you're comfortable with, but these are just the products that I've found to be cost effective and just work great, tried and true over and over again over the last many years. Picking the right handles or poles is like picking a necklace for your outfit. It may feel kind of silly or inconsequential, but it really does make a huge difference. So I had originally picked these antique brass handles, but then when I got them on, they just didn't quite suit. So I sent a message over to my wonderful friends, and they helped me pick a better option for this particular nightstand set. And as a happy surprise, they were actually $10 cheaper than the other handles, so added bonus. Just a quick reminder that here are the $35 nightstands I picked up, and here they are now. These should sell for about $300 here in the Pacific Northwest. So there you have it, furniture flipping in 5 simple steps. Your first few flips, you're gonna make mistakes, but please remember to be kind to yourself. Learning a new skill is really hard, but you can do this. And feel free to comment me any questions. I will be happy to help however I can. If you learned something new or like what you saw, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I try to put out new videos every single week. See you next time.